You know, sometimes we build up this connection or relationship with an object. Like some people like to name their cars or bikes, or some people like some sort of tools that they like knives or pens or even guns, especially here in the US. My wife, for example, she still has her old car, which is a 1966 Ford Mustang. This was her daily driver back in college, and she still refuses to sell it because they've been through so many great memories together, good and bad, like breaking down on the side of the road, visiting her grandmother, or also a lot of fun places that we've been together after she met me. It's a big part of who she is as a person, so it's very hard to let go of something like that. I think that's much more rare nowadays with our smartphones and computers and things like that. We replace our electronics very often. We get excited every time a new iPhone or an Android phone comes out, and after a few years we just forget about them and move on to something else. It's not so much different with cameras too, but when I first got my hands on the Canon 5D Mark I or the 5D Classic, it didn't take me long to understand that I was holding something special. I mean, it's not like I've never used a DSLR before. It's not like cameras from 2005 were that different from the cameras today, but I guess I was just surprised by the quality of images that I was getting with this. I mean, 2005 may not sound like such a long time ago, but imagine using your cell phone or your computer from 2005. They would be like almost unusable. I recently made a video called Photography Oversimplified. In the video I said it's always better to get a used, cheap, full-frame camera rather than getting a new entry-level camera for the same price if you want the best results. And although it's 13 years old, it's actually becoming quite popular nowadays because it's very affordable, and a lot of photographers on YouTube have been talking about it lately. I've actually owned two of these. I bought one from an eBay auction a while ago for about $300, and then I sold that one, and then more recently I bought one from Amazon for about the same price, which is amazing knowing that this used to be the top of the line professional camera that used to cost more than 10 times that amount. So it's an incredible value for money, but when you look at this camera on paper, it's really not that impressive. It has a 12.8 megapixel sensor, and considering most smartphones nowadays have 12 megapixel sensors, that might scare away some people, but that doesn't necessarily mean the pictures are going to look exactly the same as your cell phones. Continuing with the specs, it has the native ISO of 100 to 1600, that's right, 1600, not 16,000, expandable up to 3200. And it has 9 autofocus points. It can shoot 3 frames per second. It doesn't do video, you know, again, very 2005. It doesn't have Bluetooth, Wi-Fi, GPS, time-lapse, HDR, anything like that. But there's something about this camera's lack of features and simplicity that makes this camera so appealing and special. So let me show you what I mean by its simplicity. So I have the 5D Mark I here and the Canon 80D here, which is a much newer camera, obviously. So in most modern cameras, when you go to the menu, and let me focus over here, and then when you go to the menu on pretty much any modern cameras today, you have these pages after pages of different settings and menus. You can spend hours just trying to get everything right, and especially if you're a beginner, you're not even going to use like 80% of these, and you can get pretty confusing very quick. On the other hand, here I have the 5D Mark I, and let me go to the menu here. Okay, so this is what the menu looks like here. Ready? That's it. That's all there is. That's all that's in the menu. That's how simple this camera is. We just spent like 2 seconds going through the entire menu, and there's really nothing that you wouldn't use. Like you would never get lost trying to find something that you need. It's just all here on one page and just color coded. I mean, who would not like this? It's just so amazing how much more stuff there are on modern cameras. Back in high school, a friend of mine had a 91 convertible Mazda Miata. That car is about as basic a car can get within today's legal standards. It was an extremely slow car with a tiny little engine. Its air conditioning didn't work, it didn't have automatic transmission, but even till today, that car was the most fun car that I've ever driven. This camera reminds me of that car. It's like driving an old, reliable manual sports car with no computers or anything like that. It may not have the most powerful engine or the heated seats or lane departure warning or any nonsense like that, but putting the top down and shifting gears and accelerating up to 35 miles an hour, it's a feeling that only a very few people would understand. You see, most modern cameras today, like most modern cars today, are just filled with features that you'll never use, and you can spend hours in the menu just figuring things out before you actually get to do anything. But with this camera, you just put it in manual, you put your favorite prime lens on, and you go out to the street and just shoot, and it's such a fun camera to use. And the pictures that you get from this camera are nothing like anything you get from any other cameras or smartphones, I promise you. So in 2018, who should buy this camera? I think, so if you're a beginner who's interested in learning photography, I think this is a perfect camera for that. It's so simple, it's easy to learn, you don't have to spend hours setting up everything, and it's built like a tank, it's reliable, and it has a bigger battery than most cameras, so it'll last forever. So unless you're interested in shooting video or time-lapse and things like that, if you're just purely interested in photography itself, I think this is a perfect camera for you. And even for enthusiasts and professionals, this is a great portrait camera. And something like landscapes or anything that requires higher megapixel counts, and if you're planning on making prints bigger than like 36 by 24, I think this camera may not be perfect for that. But if you're just doing simple portraits, or if you're just shooting photos for your Instagram, then I think 12 megapixels is plenty. You know, 12 megapixels may not sound like much, but if you actually look at it in a chart, it's actually not that bad. And considering most bigger cell phones today have 1080p screens or 1440p, and like how many people have 4K monitors, right? So 12 megapixels scare a lot of people nowadays, but it's really not that bad. So that's it for today, guys. So the Canon 5D Mark I or the 5D Classic, it's a great camera. I highly recommend it. And here are some of the photos that I took with this camera in the past few months. So enjoy them, and please subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.